Hi everyone, my name is Kaylin and welcome to today's Hangout on Air, Remarketing 101, Recapturing Lost Customers.
Hey guys, my name's Jordan. Together with Kaylin, we're both account strategists here at Google, which means that we help advertisers just like you with your digital advertising every day. We're going to be going over remarketing today, really excited about that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You all are assigned a strategist just like Kaylin and I. Make sure to talk to them after the show.
And just a friendly reminder that this is a live Q&A, so please submit any questions you have through the Q&A app or post them on the event page. We'll try and get to as many as we can today. And if your question isn't answered, feel free to reach out to your strategist after this Hangout on Air. You will all be receiving a follow-up email. This is a great way for you to schedule an appointment and chat with either Jordan, myself, or your dedicated account strategist. All right, so what are we covering today?
So today we're going to be talking about remarketing and RLSA, some of the most powerful features that I think AdWords has to offer. So we're going to talk about remarketing and RLSA with Google AdWords, why they're so powerful, and how you can set up these practices with your strategist.
All right, so let's dive into remarketing with Google AdWords. So what is remarketing? Remarketing kind of has some other terms across the internet, retargeting, or in the most common phrase, it's just re-showing your ads to people who have been to your website previously. And the value of this is that these ads are now only showing to people who have previously been to your site. So it's a great way to really specify where your budget is going and the message that you're trying to convey. So these ads will now show to people who are perusing across the internet, reading other articles, or perhaps a competitor's website, and you now have the opportunity to show your branded ads to these people with the overall goal of completing that conversion, whether it be an online sale or a form submission, really whatever goal that you're trying to achieve.
So let's think about why we have websites. So our goal for our site is to convert visitors into paying customers. We want to drive some sort of conversion action, be it a phone call or a form fill-out request or an e-commerce purchase. So a couple quick statistics there. 96% of visitors leave a website without taking that action we're trying to drive, without converting. And 49% of consumers will typically visit 2 to 4 sites before they make a purchasing decision.
So on average, how successful is remarketing?
So we've seen about 50% lower cost per acquisition, so cost per each conversion, with both of these remarketing types, remarketing and RLSA. Really powerful stuff.
Yeah, really interesting. All right, so to fully understand, the potential and power of remarketing, it's really important to understand, that there are many vehicles to a conversion. And what that means is that there are many points along the stage that a consumer can hear about your product or research your product until they come to the very final stage of actually purchasing. So for example, let's take an example of someone buying women's shoes. So they can either go online and do a search for women's shoes. They can read about it, the newest trends in fashion while on a fashion blog, and then that might inspire them to start thinking about buying a new pair of shoes. A friend could email them that similar article or a brand of shoe that they saw online, and that might inspire then someone to visit an online store to peruse the options that are available, the sizes and the colors. And so what we want to do through remarketing is to make sure that we are capturing the audiences through each of those points along that conversion cycle.
Great. So remarketing essentially gives you that second chance to bring back these non-converting customers. We can recapture this lost traffic, especially if you have a longer buying cycle, which a lot of you guys do, and revisit these interested potential customers who may have forgotten about your brand. So, there's a lot of problems with completing these goals, these conversions along the web. I mean, people have a lot of information available to them on the web, and sometimes you can just get caught up in your daily life. 70% of consumers will abandon a shopping cart without making a purchasing decision. So remarketing really allows you to recapture these people and drive these conversion actions in a new way.
Yeah, I know that there's so many times where you have something in a shopping cart, and that 70%, I definitely fall in that all the time there. We're getting a lot of questions about, can you give us a real life example, Jordan?
Definitely.
So,
Why don't I take you as an example?
Okay, let's take me as an example.
So let's say Kaylin's here at work and she's online shopping for some shoes. She's on her favorite e-commerce site, retail site. I look over her shoulder and remind her that this is the workplace and it's time to get back to work. And she quickly, embarrassedly exits out of the browser. And so she goes along with her busy day, and she kind of forgets about the pair of shoes. We got a lot of work to do. And a couple days later, she gets reminded while she's reading maybe the New York Times or just any old fashion blog. So she can see that exact same pair of shoes pop up on the left-hand side with the price, the image of the shoes, and where she's buying them from. So she decides, oh, I completely forgot about these. Like, let me go ahead and go back and buy these shoes. So you get that purchase from that same exact retailer that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have gotten from a dedicated consumer, and you grow that brand loyalty.
Yeah, and I think Jordan highlighted that point at the end there, but really making sure that, I can buy a pair of shoes from any retailer, but that with the power of remarketing, I go back to that specific seller who I was researching in the beginning rather than going to, a competitor's brand. We also have a question coming through, other than, shoes and e-commerce, does this remarketing strategy apply to people that are, maybe not e-commerce?
Definitely. So as long as there's an action on your website that you're trying to drive, whether it be a quote fill out form or even just phone calls, remarketing just allows you to recapture these people who maybe haven't taken that action. So we have this audience, and we only pay when somebody clicks and decides to revisit our site. So no matter what they do, they're demonstrating this interest in our business, regardless of what our product or service is, or even if it is a product.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. So to summarize, remarketing, it's one of Google's most powerful tools within AdWords. For the 3 points that it's customizable, you can specify the placements, and you can allocate a certain budget for remarketing. So for customization, going back to Jordan's point about remarketing that specific goal that you have in mind, you're now able to have these image ads highlighting the goal that you're trying to achieve back to those customers who have been to your website previously. So whether it's remarketing ads that say buy now or sign up today, you're able to show those ads back to those highly invested people to drive those conversions to the end there. The placement option allows you to remarket these specific ads to that specific audience, but now to maybe only certain websites that would actually drive those conversions. And then lastly is the price. Being able to allocate a specific budget to high priority customers allows you to be very, very strategic with your budget. And you now know that this budget is going towards very highly invested customers rather than just more broadly displaying your brand and your ads across the display network. So all great things to talk to your strategist about. We can help you figure out how to customize your ad text, what placements to put these on, and specific budget that would be good for your particular business to drive that return on investment. So I know that we covered a lot on remarketing. Let's now jump into remarketing for search. So Jordan, what's the main difference between remarketing and remarketing with search within AdWords?
So first off, remarketing operates on the display network, which is all of Google's partner sites where we can serve ads that are not just Google search. RLSA is along the search network, so Google's search function itself and our search partners. But I guess in layman's terms, what this really means is that remarketing is more for recapturing lost traffic and trying to remind people of our brand by serving them when they're not actively interested in our products or services. Whereas remarketing lists for search just allows us to bid more intelligently on those people who are actively right now searching for our products and services and our brand.
Nice, yeah. And so like Jordan was mentioning, remarketing for search is actually only a Google-specific product that was launched within the last couple months to all advertisers. So we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive for remarketing for search, highlighting the benefits, how you make these audience lists, how to effectively build a remarketing for search campaign, and then some just general best practices that we like to share with our advertisers. So what are some of the potential benefits of remarketing for search?
So the really powerful thing about remarketing for search, or RLSA, is that we can combine all of the power that we have with direct response with Google search, where people want exactly what we are providing at that exact moment. They're typing into the search bar, they want it right now, with the pre-qualified traffic that we have with this remarketed audiences. So by combining those two, we know just in general terms that if somebody is searching for exactly what it is we provide and they're familiar with our brand, if they click on our ad, they're deciding to revisit a place that they're familiar with. They already know what the deal is with our website. That shows an enormous amount of purchasing intent, which makes them a lot more valuable to us as an advertiser.
Mm-hmm. All right, so how do we set this up then?
So we've got two options for setup here. The first one is bid only, where we basically just apply this remarketed audience to an existing search campaign and bid a little bit more intelligently and aggressively on these people who are familiar with our site. Again, because if they do decide to click on our ad, they have a lot more purchasing intent than any old Joe off the street. The other thing that we can do is called target and bid. We have a couple options there. So the first is we can make duplicates of our existing campaigns with new ads and audiences, so different creatives for these remarketed people. Or we can just do a completely new campaign just for RLSA, where we have broader search terms for this pre-qualified traffic.
Interesting. Okay. So there are these two campaign types. What are the pros and cons for bid only versus target and bid?
So for bid only, the pro there is just that it's a very, very easy setup, and it just makes sense intuitively, right? We want to bid more for these people who are familiar with us. The cons there, we can't refine the messaging, so we can't serve them particularly different ads for these remarketed users. And we can't allocate specific budget to these people past just the bid adjustment. The thing about target and bid, while it is a bit more of a complex setup, is that customers are already familiar with your brand, so you can broaden out the keywords a little bit. So let's say we sell high heels. It wouldn't make sense to generally just bid on the term shoes. But if we know that these people are pre-qualified, if we know that they're familiar with our brand, it might make sense to broaden out a little bit. The other thing that's really nice is we can customize our messaging. So let's say we want to serve coupons only to people who have been to our site before to try and recapture that lost traffic. Or what we can do is just try and remind our users that maybe we're adding new products all the time. Just another reason to try to call them back.
Yeah, those are great points there. I think one of my favorite conversations to have with my advertisers is really understanding, what their business goals are, because by understanding, what you guys are trying to achieve, we can recommend, bid only is a lot better strategy for you, or target and bid. And then from there, help you customize your ad text so that you can have those compelling remarketed ads there, and really making sure that you're driving the overall conversion that you guys are hoping to achieve.
Great.
So we have a question from Paige. She's asking, what is the best way to utilize remarketing in a B2B environment? So that's business-to-business environment. She gives an example that her searches for her particular industry are very specific. So like ocean freight Shanghai, rather than the casual web surfers who might be searching for, women's high heels. So how would you utilize remarketing in more B2B environment?
So we've got a couple options there. First, just by its very nature, with RLSA and remarketing, we only pay for a click. So even if somebody comes to your site by mistake and is served one of these remarketed ads, they're not going to click on it since they already know what's going on with your website and they already know that it's a service they're probably not interested in. Whereas the people who really are interested in are the only people we're going to be paying for when they click on our ads and revisit our site. The other nice thing is we have a lot of targeting options with remarketing and RLSA. So we can change up these audiences past just people who have been to the site and kind of refine our audiences a little bit. So maybe we want people who have spent a significant amount of time on the site or seen a significant amount of pages. Maybe we want somebody who's visited a quote request form or hasn't made that quote request. Or maybe we even just want to recapture people who have actually made a purchase before, and we want to market to those people specifically.
Wow, that sounds, yeah. Sometimes in the beginning, it was only under the impression that you could target people who've been to your website generally. But yeah, what Jordan's mentioning is that based off of, URLs or cookies that you place on your site, you can really get down to the granular level of, the other day I helped someone set up their remarketing campaign, so they only visited one particular page. And it's been a very successful campaign thus far. So that's a really great point.
There's a lot of power here.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to deep dive into some best practices that we have, things to consider and things to avoid. So a lot of the things to consider, the technicalities around remarketing, have to do with something that we call an audience list. And the audience list is a list of people who've been to your website previously. And the way that our system keeps track of those visitors is by placing cookies on these visitors who visit your site. The cookies are tagged to people based off of a remarketing code that you manually add to the back end of your site, either through an ADWORDS tag or Google Analytics. And on our end here, we're more than happy to help you set that up there. So if remarketing is something that you're interested in and don't have the code set up yet, give us a call. We'd be happy to help you through that there. But once you do have that tag set up, you need at least 1,000 visitors on your website in order for remarketing to start populating and for those lists to actually start working. So if the list is less than 1,000, it won't actually be a true remarketing campaign. So that's something to keep in mind. And in order to maximize that audience list there are a couple strategies that we have in mind here. One is maximizing the list duration to 180 days. So when you set up your remarketing campaign audience list, usually it's defaulted down to 30 to 60 days or so. But by expanding it to 180 days, you're now allowing those cookies to be saved until that 180-day period. And what we've noticed on our end here is that the conversion rates between 90 and 180 days after the site visitation is actually significantly higher than someone who returns to your site after 1 to 7 days. So that's one thing to consider, is maximizing that list duration size. And then secondly there is to increase the just general audience list there. So previously we were talking about people who want to only remarket back to people who visited certain pages. That might limit your traffic a little bit, just because if you're not getting 1,000 visitors to that one particular page, might not have enough data to populate the list there. So thinking about maybe setting up a general branded remarketing campaign to anyone that's been to your site previously, or just anyone who hasn't checked out in the past.
Great.
All right. What are some other things that we should consider about these lists here?
So the first thing is it's really, really easy to set up remarketing here. What we can do is, if you have analytics on your site, you already have everything you need to get started with remarketing. We can build the list in just a few minutes. Our strategists can help you out. We're standing by the phones to help. If you have analytics, you already have everything you need to get started. What we should do, just to start and make sure that we're capturing all of this qualified traffic, is to make an all visitors list first, where we just have all of the website visitors is the first thing we start with. And then from there, we can kind of pare down and see what's working for us. Like you said, longer duration lists are definitely a good way to go, especially to get that 1,000-person minimum for RLSA. But the requirement is actually much smaller for remarketing along the display network. So if you're a local small business or something, you can definitely tackle it there with a branded remarketing campaign.
Interesting. So we have a question coming from Ricardo asking just what are the general minimum requirements to running a remarketing campaign? Would you say the list, or what else do we need to keep in mind when we want to go ahead and set this up?
So as long as you have a business that has conversions that you can drive on the site, we definitely want that. You need to be able to have some sort of tracking on your website. So Google Analytics, if you already have it, you can just turn on a few quick features. Your strategist can help you out with that. Or if you don't have analytics, you can implement a small piece of code. But other than that, you have everything you need to get started. The other thing is we do have a couple quick legal requirements. So anything that you wouldn't want somebody to know about you offhand if they were glancing over your shoulder. So things like medical, we generally disapprove.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah. All right. So now that we kind of know, what's required to set up these remarketing for search campaigns, last thing here is now thinking about the meat of the campaign, the ad content that you want to be remarketing back to those people who've been to your website previously. And so Jordan and I, when we're setting up these campaigns, we like to tweak the ad text to make sure that you're giving users a reason to come back to the site. If they've been there previously, you wouldn't necessarily want to show them the same ad. Maybe have a stronger selling point or focus on a new value proposition. Sometimes like to throw in maybe a coupon to someone that that has converted in the past. So really just making sure that there's some purpose behind the rationale for remarketing back to specific people. All right.
Great. Yeah, so just in summary, remarketing and RLSA, two of the most powerful tools I think we have in AdWords. It allows you to recapture lost traffic. It allows you to give specific ads to these highly interested customers to drive conversions from this pre-qualified audience. You can customize all of your ad language for these specific customers, and you can bid more intelligently, so you know exactly what you're paying for and for whom.
All right. Well, looks like we have a lot of questions coming through, and we have a couple minutes here, so we'll try and take as many as we can. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So Carlos is asking, this question's for you, Jordan. What is the benefit of running both remarketing and remarketing for search in tandem? So running them both at the same time.
Great. Yeah. So I think they accomplish different things, right? So remarketing is kind of attempting to remind people of your brand, your product, your services, and call them back after they've navigated away after some period of time. Because we really don't know what our users are like on the internet. There's a lot of things that can distract them. Maybe they're just waiting on their next paycheck, right, to book your services or buy your product. Whereas RLSA kind of allows us to just bid more intelligently and really just have as much control as possible over our campaigns to try and cut our acquisition costs for these customers and capture them at the exact moment that they want our products when they're specifically a person that we know is worth more to us.
Yeah, that's a great point. So would you recommend that people run both of them?
I would recommend in general that it's a very, very good practice. But again, reach out to your strategist and make sure it's the right fit for your business before you do that.
And if I'm running a remarketing for search campaign, do I need to run a traditional search campaign as well? Or what's the value of running, remarketing for search and display remarketing and regular display campaigns?
So they accomplish different things. You definitely want to make sure that you're reaching new customers, and that's kind of the benefit of advertising in general, but especially all the Google product suites. Whereas remarketing is just kind of for that specific audience, which is namely obviously a lot smaller than the whole of the internet. But it allows you to improve your return on investment with our platform just by making these intelligent decisions given the data that somebody has been to the site before. So definitely worth doing all of these things. But again, reach out to your strategist, make sure it's right for you.
Okay, good. All right, and we have another question from Simon. Is remarketing worth the effort for small local businesses?
Definitely, because it affords the same kind of targeting methods that anything else within AdWords has. So if you wanted to remarket solely to people within, let's say, a 10-mile radius of your local business, you can still definitely do that. And again, you only pay for a click, so you only pay if somebody who has been to the site before and knows where you are decides to revisit. That being said, remarketing list for search has a minimum of 1,000 users on your audience list. So make sure you do a longer duration and make sure that you probably utilize display remarketing in the meantime to try and call back those lost customers.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thanks.
And we have a more technical question coming from Sam asking, I think in reference to the audience lists that we spoke about earlier, how do you set those up specifically? You can set up those lists within Google Analytics. So in the analytics side, there's an audience area where you can set up those lists. Also available within the AdWords end, both of which are, you set them up based off of specific URLs that people visit onto your site, or even based off of specific events in the case of Google Analytics. So for example, if someone clicks on a checkout button and that's a goal that you're tracking, but kind of complex on the analytics side, but definitely both things that we're very able to help you guys out on your end there. So, like he was saying, reach out to us. We'd love to just really figure out which audience would make the most sense for you to allocate a specific campaign towards. And yeah, very easy once you set up a couple, and then would be happy to help you get on your way to creating more and more remarketing campaigns.
That's what we're here for.
So we have one last question here, how remarketing for search can help a lead gen client. So she doesn't give a specific answer, a specific business, but let's say, how can a lawyer use remarketing for search? Because it makes a lot of sense for e-commerce businesses. But
definitely, yeah. So really anything. Lawyer is a great example. Maybe you have a lot of competitors. People want to check out your competitors, and there's a lot of options there as far as the competitive set. People want to check out different pricing, things like that, and maybe they're just waiting on a paycheck to try and book expensive services like that. So again, it's just the sort of thing where if somebody navigates away from the site for whatever reason, maybe to get more information, maybe to check out competitors, you might get lost in translation there. People are very, very busy. Not a lot of time spent on the web just for these singular efforts. So couple days later, a week later, 2 weeks later, they see maybe an ad, reminds them of the brand, reminds them of the law firm in particular. And if they click, if they decide to revisit, then they're probably going to fill out a quote request, because why else would they revisit that site?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I know for lawyers, this keywords can be expensive. So creating a remarketing for search campaign can really make sure that you're only bidding on those customers who have high potential to convert.
Definitely.
All right, so we're getting a lot of questions about, how to successfully implement these remarketing campaigns, and really glad that everyone's so interested. I highly recommend that you reach out to Jordan, myself, if we're your dedicated account strategist, or many other teammates on our end here who would love to have this conversation with you and really make sure that you're prepared to equip the best remarketing strategy for your particular business. We are running out of time, though, so for any questions that we didn't answer, you'll be receiving a follow-up email on ways that you can get in contact with us. So we would love for you to schedule a complimentary personal consultation with your AdWords strategist and answer any of your questions there. But yeah, Jordan and I had a great time hanging out with you guys online. And yeah, we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.